Hi everyone, and welcome to my conversation today with somebody who needs no introduction. I'm here with Doug Caddell, who is the Global CIO of Mayer Brown. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Carolyn. How are you today?
I'm really good, thank you. And we are here to talk about your retirement. You only just announced that you're retiring from the profession.
Yeah, and I'll be still at Mayer Brown through the end of January doing transition work, and my replacement will be announced shortly. So that's all in process.
In process. So we're going to chat through some of your career history. I just wanted to introduce you properly. So many of you will know Doug. So Doug is a veteran CIO, legal industry technologist, internationally recognized speaker, writer on all things legal technology, and I added all-round good guy. I know you've always been extremely kind. I think most people would agree, and generous with your time, which is I think a lot of people will reflect on. You started your career in the US Navy, but in 1982 became a manager in the information systems consulting practice, Ernst & Winnie. Your first legal job, I've been doing my homework, Doug. Your first legal job was Director of IT at the Arizona Attorney General's office, but you then became CIO of O'Connor Kavanagh Attorneys. I think it was in 1999 that you arguably made the big leap in terms of law firms by joining Foley and Lardner as CIO, and you were there for 13 years. And then you had a stint in vendor side rather with K-Kira, which we now know as Relativity, followed by a CIO consulting career before you joined Mayer Brown in 2016. And today we're going to reflect on some of your career highlights, I suppose, but also some reflections on how things have changed in terms of the things that were top of your list of priorities when you started out, and perhaps how that reflects on the way things are today, which I think for me and a lot of people will be extremely interesting and potentially valuable. Do you want to so tell me about, when you started out, perhaps? I know you like stories, Doug. Did you want to start with a story?
Well, my life is a story, and for some it's a nightmare, for others it's a dream, and for me it's just a story. Because life is, but I consider life is a journey, and a journey with forks in the road, and you move down the road to a certain place and you come to a fork in the road and you turn one way or the other and you go down the road more and there's another forks. But thank you for the kind introduction. That was most unexpected and most kind, but I mean, you took some of my story away. But
No.
How have things changed? Well, everything changes over time. Like you mentioned, I started out in the Navy. I was started there as an ordnanceman, flying on anti-submarine patrol planes out of Jacksonville, Florida, and Keflavik, Iceland. But I finished my 6 years in the Navy as a weather forecaster. So I was certified by the U.S. Navy in cloud in 1977. And I point that out specifically because that was long before most IT people talked about cloud. So I was certified in the cloud in 77, so it's nothing new. But then I went to finish up university with a double major in MIS, Management Information Systems and Accounting, got that from the University of Arizona, who, by the way, had the first MIS department in the country. But then I worked in businesses, CPA firms, and I did that to get a background in business to apply to the business use of computers. So I owe it is technology was sort of where I was going to and leaning to, and the MIS major was my primary major, but I had an accounting one because why not? But then, as you mentioned, I became a consulting manager for Ernst & Winnie before it was Ernst & Young. And that was my first consulting gig. And that's where I learned the consulting trade. And that's, benefited me both when I've done true consulting work, but also as IT managers, Work in-house, we're always consulting with our users. It's, we're consultants just internally. But so as you mentioned, I started legal when I was in charge of IT for the Arizona Attorney General's office, a government law firm, basically. Had, I think, 260 lawyers in it at the time, and then moved to a Phoenix-based firm, O'Connor Cavanaugh, as you suggested. Nothing to do with Sandra Day O'Connor, the former justice in our U.S. Supreme Court, although she was from Arizona as well, but different name. But and that's about when the first PCs started to appear on desks. It was the mid-90s, and but it wasn't then that I had my first IT service call. I was working at a CPA firm, probably early 80s, and the tax department had gotten a PC, one of the first IBM PCs. And because I had an MIS degree, they thought I knew about PCs. And so they got this standalone PC and they put it on a table in this room, and they couldn't get it to work. So they called me. I mean, this is like year one of PCs. And so I walked into the room, and it was on a table, and I could see under the table and everything. And I walked over to the PC. I bent down onto the floor, and I got the electrical plug and plugged it in the wall. And the lights lit up, and I walked away. So that was my first IT call.
And that set you up for life with the turn it off, turn it on again, right?
That set me up, yeah. But in the mid-90s, moving forward to like the O'Connor Cavanaugh firm and stuff, and this was in the mid-90s, and the computer was thought of by many lawyers as a secretary's tool. We were getting PCs on desks of lawyers, and some, there was word processing that came out, but before then, word processors did word processing. Nobody had a keyboard on their desk. But we were getting things out there for most of the lawyers for email and a couple other things, but not a whole lot. But at that firm, we had, so what were the challenges of some of the things that were going on? Like I said, a lot of lawyers thought it was a secretary's tool, and they didn't want anything to do with it. We had two lawyers that come to mind. One was a guy named John, and he just didn't see the need for it. So that's one of our challenges we've always had as IT directors is, findings, convincing someone, that's a bad word to use, that they have a need, or demonstrating to them how this could help them do their work. And John just had not been convinced before. Well, he was a insurance defense lawyer, so he worked for the big insurance companies. And I had tried to convince him to been in his office many times. I have a computer. All your coworkers have them. Peer pressure didn't work. But one day I got a call from John and said, "Can you stop up in my office for a minute?" So I did. And he said, "Well, I'd like a computer." And it was like, oh, wow. Why? What changed? Well, his client asked him to participate in one of their online portals. And so client need is always a big driver for different types of tools, technologies, and other. But the other story I have from that time was a little bit more funny. A guy named Bob. Bob was on the management committee of the firm, and he used to be behind his back laughed at, or maybe to his face, laughed at by other members of the management committee because Bob used to always bring a thick stack of papers to the management committee meetings that his secretary had printed out because it's a secretary's tool. And after months of trying to cajole, whatever, Bob into just try it, I got a call one day from his secretary, not from him, saying, "Can you come up to Bob's office in an hour, please?" And so, okay, drop everything, go to Bob's office, and, "Hi, Bob, what can I do for you?" "Well, I'd like a computer." It's like, what? Bob wants a computer? Did I hear that right? And so I went back to down a floor to the IT area and said, Bob wants a computer. He wants it at 2 p.m. So at 2 p.m., one of my team was outside his door in a cart with a computer, a big old desktop computer, and some wires and stuff, and walked into his office and said, where would you like it? And back then we wouldn't, offices weren't really set up for computers on desks. So a lot of people had it on the credenza behind them, but some had it on the desk as well. And he said, well, just put it on the corner of my desk right here. And like, wow. And then the IT person said, well, he was trying to figure out how to do wiring across the floor so nobody would, trip and die. And he said, well, I need to be back I need to get some additional wires. And Bob said, oh, don't worry about that. I'm not going to turn it on. So why did he want a computer? Because he wanted one of his clients to think he looked cool.
Oh my goodness.
and he told the IT guy, you can take it away at 5 o'clock. And he had a client coming in, and he just wanted to show that he had a computer on his desk and take it away at 5 o'clock.
It's brilliant.
So those things happened, the mid 90s, a long time ago, but those ones you remember.
Oh my goodness, honestly.
Go ahead.
It's night and day, isn't it? Was that the period? So you mentioned email. So was it during that period that some people started using email at your firm?
Yeah, that was back in the mid 90s.
Yeah, so and with that, I mean, it's funny because you take so much for granted now, but with some of the new changes that are happening, people compare it to the advent of email, in terms of the legal profession using email. And I just wondered if you could reflect on, your experiences of when lawyers started using email, whether they were thinking that, the world was potentially over and that this was going to be a radically destructive thing, or do you remember how it felt or what happened?
Not destructive, I guess. I think most thought it was becoming helpful.
Okay.
Because, they didn't have as many people they had to call back on the phone. They didn't have to write, so many formal letters and dictation and all that stuff. So I think it was generally seen as a positive thing. It wasn't portable yet. You had to be at your desk. But that was coming, and that's another chapter.
Is that another? So what other reflections? So when you think about some of your career highlights, or when you reflect back, are there certain things that really jump out to you in terms of real milestones or highlights that you would want to flag or celebrate?
Well, there's probably a few, but I guess one is that after I left that firm, I went in consulting for law firms a little bit, and then I was, as you mentioned, at Foley and Lardner for 13 years. And then I went back into consulting after Foley, and that included, as you mentioned, a little bit of time as interim CIO at Relativity, which was, as you pointed out, known as K-Cura. So what's published on Relativity sites and is known by some, but that while at Foley, I helped start the Relativity software. In 2004, a gentleman by the name of Bruce Blank, who was my lit support director, and I talked about needing something to do discovery. The e-discovery word wasn't known then, so it was just discovery. And so we he had been familiar with a small company here in Chicago, K-Cura, run by Andrew Saja and eight other people. It was just a small custom dev shop. And we had them come up and work with us. And that's how Relativity was founded as far as the software product.
Amazing. I did not know that. I'm going to be honest with you. I could pretend, that in my preparation that was something, but I actually didn't know that, Doug.
But in 2004, I was offered the CIO job at Baker McKenzie, and I elected to stay at Foley, which was sort of a big ego trip because Baker's was the largest law firm in the world at the time, and I had the formal written offer, and it's like, do I stay or do I go? And so it was sort of an ego trip. I just turned down the CIO job at the largest law firm in the world. But I stayed at Foley because we were doing a lot of practice and client-focused technology. And a lot of the bigger firms, what you were doing is what I had been doing for the last 10, 15 years, which is infrastructure and just getting computers on desks. So at Foley, we won a bunch of awards, often the first among law firms because we weren't competing for awards in the legal tech community. We were competing against like Marriott hotels and big time companies. And then in 2007, one of the reasons why I stayed was we formed the practice and client solutions team. And I'll back up here for a second because I did the same thing when I got to Mayor Brown in 2016. If you think about how technology organizations in or out of law spend a lot of their time, where they spend a lot of their time, it's in the backroom stuff, the back end stuff. And very little time, in the big scheme of things, is focused on, what the business is, what people do day in, day out. In a law firm context, everybody's spending time on getting systems running, getting email running, all this stuff, but spending very little time really working with their lawyers, talking with the lawyers, working with practice groups, and working with clients as well to, because that's really our raison d'etre, to help do that stuff. So we formed a practice and client solutions team, which is really our first innovation team. And I think at Foley it's still called that. But so that's sort of where a lot of focus has been over time.
Yeah, I do remember that sea change going from, IT people being very much focused on the back office, and then speaking to people over the years and who were doing sort of client development work, and your ears prick up, and you're like, oh, things are really changing, But that, and then now to where we are today. You said about IT should be fun. Is it fun?
It's still fun. But to use a bad phrase of grammar, it used to be funner. But I think some of the things are, it's changed. So like I said, things change over time. If you think about in 2005, everyone wanted to do KM. And I would go and ask people working either internally or externally, well, why do you want to do KM? Well, because everybody else is doing it. But few knew what it was or what it could do. They just sort of wanted to do it because everybody wanted to do it. And today's discussions regarding AI are similar. So both KM and AI can do amazing things, but we need to understand them and have some focus. So that's sort of part of the changes of the times, but it's still the same.
And actually, it sort of reflects back to the computer on the desk thing as well, and to a certain extent, yeah. There'll be people that, because their clients are talking about Gen AI or AI, that they want to have it, even if they don't really want to use it on, there's always going to be, whatever it is along the years, there's always going to be that kind of the way that we progress. Yeah. And the client demand, obviously accelerating things. It's interesting, isn't it, that whatever the thing changes.
Except for the lawyer I referenced earlier, Bob. Bob probably, and that was his name. I just think, his name was Bob. I'm not going to give you his last name, but that's probably Bob is not there today. Oh, but so after 13 years at Foley, I accomplished what I had intended to do, and then I asked myself, what am I? What do I like to do? And I was thinking about, what do I do next? And I was thinking, I didn't go to any recruiters, but I thought about what recruiters often ask people. And they often ask, as you're looking for a new job or a new career, who are you? And so I reflected on that over 1 or 2 beers. I didn't take more than 2 because it didn't take that much time. I probably had a third. But I'm a builder, and I'm a builder who likes to build great IT departments who deliver great technology. And over the many years of my career, I've developed into a leader who builds great IT teams that deliver great technology. And after 8+ years at Mayer Brown, we developed a global IT team delivering high value. So it's time to retire and move on.
I'm sure time. Well, you will be missed. We will see you at ILTA 2024, and so everybody will go and say hello and wish you the best of luck with the next chapter. I just wanted, yeah.
So if I can go on just for a minute or two, because I wanted to get back to one of the things that we talked about is, as I look back, how has legal tech changed?
Okay.
So if I look back how it was how to simplify the ability to work. The most difficult thing was getting the basic technology to work, and identifying how technology could be used to make things better, the business analysis part of it, consulting with people, identifying the need and finding a basic tool to fill that need. Now it's a bit more of considering how to prevent technology from getting the firm in trouble. We talk about cybersecurity and technology and applications that might fail. When things are so integrated and applications are so dependent upon each other, consider what happened with CrowdStrike. So technology is so embedded and intertwined in everything we do. It used to be creating a document and sending an email. Now you look at everybody walking down the street and half of them have a device in their face. So there is no downtime, and that's a big change. There is no downtime. In the past, thoughts were, well, what might change next month or maybe next year? Now, when we go to, and when we lay down for the night, I'm not saying when we go to sleep, because we probably don't do that. But now when you lay down at night, the thought is, what will happen tonight or tomorrow? And then keeping up with vendor announcements such as Copilot, sort of the new AI thing. So thoughts now are on security, privacy, geolocation, regional and country regulations, the regulatory environment, and also what you do and with technology to try to protect people within the firm while they do not understand the complexities and just what might happen if somebody inadvertently opens the back door. So if I just sort of summarize that, difference between then and now is, then the focus was how do we simplify? And now is doing the same, but also protecting the firm, the people from themselves. So ILTA, it will be great to be at ILTA. I've been to 30+ ILTAs. It started out when ILTA used to be the Wang VS Legal Users Group, or VSLUG, which I always love that name.
Yeah.
And it started out in Phoenix, where I was at the time. And then, as you may remember, I also helped start ILTA in Europe. I was one of the people that first came over. So I look forward to.
Well, we've seen each other.
Maybe my last ILTA. I don't know.
I love that, and thank you for that. Those reflections. It's very thought-provoking. In terms of the role of technology and how it has changed. That's it has become such a different job and so fast-paced, and I do think that's perhaps a cause for people to just reflect on how we take a breath, perhaps.
And we have to do that.
We have to take a breath, and how we keep it fun, because that's when some of us do our best work, right? Like when things.
What's amazing is that because I get an annual physical every year, you should do that, so I've been doing it, and in the job that we all have in this business, I do not have high blood pressure. And it's like, wow, how did that happen?
Well, I don't know, Doug, because I'm sure I do.
I should. But the last thing I'll leave with is that one of the things I like to do is brand projects and departments and things like that. Yeah. So this is our logo, which is Evolve Mayer Brown Technology, because that's what we do. We evolve Mayer Brown Technology.
Is that, and you created, that's your own logo, obviously.
Yeah, it's on the bottom of my email and everything.
I like it. Yeah, I've seen it. It's not the last thing I want to ask you because this was a bit of fun. So what you did in the run up to your retirement, I hear you did a quiz with your team about Doug. And I wanted for everybody's benefit to ask, we haven't got time to do more than one. But I really wanted to ask if anybody might guess what your first real job was. Was it A, a sailing instructor, B, scuba instructor, C, summer lifeguard, or D, snow cone maker? So you can tell us, Doug, what was your first real job?
Okay, just real quick, I grew up sailing. I was sailing lessons when I was 5.5, racing when I was 8. I was scuba diving when I was 14. I grew up at the beach a lot of the time. So all that stuff made sense. But my first real job was a snow cone maker. And my favorite color snow cone to make was blue. I like cherry as well, but I made the blue. I was a snow cone maker at a summer place where on the beach.
I absolutely love it. Thank you. We wish you all the best with your retirement. Hopefully we will continue to see you in some capacity on the circuit. But wish you all the best of luck with the next chapter, and look forward to having a beer with you at ILTA.
We'll have to see where that next chapter goes. But thank you very much for this, and thanks for the invitation. And see you next week, and see probably many of you next week as well.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Take care.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.